everyone, and welcome to the new episode of the Big at the Back podcast. I know it's season 2, but I've very much forgotten what episode we're on. Matt, maybe you can fill us in.
I can. It's season 2, episode 11. Welcome back.
So, international break time. Exciting times in FPL because loads of people, including you, are on a wildcard right now. How are you feeling?
Not great, but I don't know. Wildcards always seem quite stressful to me, just because there's so many options, and even more so in this year than there have been in past years. So it feels like you can easily miss out on a big scorer. But it's also fun just to tinker and spend like the next sort of 8, 9, 10 days just fiddling around with it and seeing what happens. That's what she said.
Nice. Yeah, I feel a little frustrated with my wildcard because though I did well, I was speaking this whole podcast last week about how we should be looking at Son seriously and getting in Son. I absolutely bottled it last minute and changed it back. So I didn't get Son in the end, and I missed out on a 19 points haul from a hat trick from an XG of 0.4, which is absolute. It's back to the Son of old. But lots to speak about. Lots has happened over the last 7 games. Was it 7 fixtures? Because some of them were postponed because of the Queen. So,
Yep.
Game week 8. Talk to me about how you did, Matt.
Not too bad all in all. 57 points, so a little bit above average, and green arrows, so I can't complain too much. Pope in goal was sort of a disappointment not to be keeping a clean sheet against Bournemouth, I guess, but I think Bournemouth are looking a little bit better at the moment. I was also hampered by the Arsenal duo of Zinchenko and Ødegaard both not playing, so I only actually ended up with 10 men throughout the game week. Emerson with 1 point, Trippier with 5, could have been more after he hit the post with a free kick. Cancelo with 9, so he was my star at the back. Midfield, mainly of disappointment with Jensen, Andreas, and then a blank space for Ødegaard with nothing. They were dragged out of the mire by Kevin De Bruyne with his 2 assists, though. He had a great game against whoever it was they played, Wolves, wasn't it? 3-0. And then up front, Isaac, Jesus and Haaland all getting a goal, so it could have been worse there. Haaland was my captain, so he ended up with 12 points. So yeah, all in all, not too bad. Probably could have been a little bit better if I had a 4-11 out, but I can't complain too much, having not wildcarded, just about scraping 10 players out and finishing with green arrows. So how did you get on?
Yeah, so I was on a wild card and got a big green arrow, ended on 63 points. I felt like I took a big risk captaining Kane over Haaland, but it did pay off. So across the front line, Kane, captain with 20, Haaland with 6, Mitro with 2. Across the midfield, the only guy that really performed was James Maddison. Despite losing quite badly to Spurs, he looked like he was playing well. So he was there with 7 points for me. Stones and Cancelo both with the clean sheet, Cancelo with 3 bonus points, and Trippier with the assist as well. Like you, would have been much stronger if Newcastle had kept a clean sheet. It's absolutely crazy to me. We've been picking up Newcastle on this podcast. They've only got 1 win.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like you when you actually look at the table and like you consider, all right, they've got as many wins as Bournemouth and all these other teams that people are sort of touting as absolute fodder. I can include West Ham in that at the moment. But yeah, I feel like the sort of flip side of that coin is they're unbeaten in 6, I think. So it depends on how you look at it. I'm sure Eddie Howe will be looking at it as they're unbeaten in 6.
Yeah, sure. Also, news on the fantasy football front. Our big at the back team after wildcarding is back in action.
We will ignore the fact that I forgot to save the actual starting 11, so we ended up with Andreas Pereira as captain.
Bloody idiot. But the star of the show there was...
Yeah, Saliba, the big man. We got him in.
15 points, basically saving our game week despite Matt being an absolute special man with his captain choice.
Yeah, I mean, we are still bottom of the big at the back league. We've clawed it back. Yeah, like you say, we're back in action. I things looking up. The team's looking a lot better after that wild card. 53 points last week. So the only way is up, and I feel like we've got a much better squad now. So I'm feeling a little bit more confident.
The point of the big at the back team at this point is we need to beat Stephen, who was on this podcast before, and we've decided is arguably the worst FPL player we've ever met in our life. So as long as we beat Stephen with our joint team, we can hold our head high. For the big at the back team, running through them, Josh Bell is still in front. Really strong 63 points from him. Best score of the game week, I think. Or should be. But with Isaac at FBL, Jimmy shooting back up to second with a monstrous 75 points this game week. Jimmy Verrier. Luke Brown coming in third with 71, and Frank Sales dropping to fourth with 54. Then it's myself, then Nima Fedosi in sixth, and yourself in seventh.
It's worth noting that of those top 5, 3 were wildcards and 2 were free hits last week. So Josh, Frank and yourself all wildcarded, and Jimmy and Luke were both on their free hits. So that is something to take into account. And if you look at Jimmy, for example, in second place, he's used his wildcard, his bench boost, and a free hit already. So he is going big with his chips early doors.
Yeah, going very. He doesn't really care about long-term planning by the looks of it.
I'm going to take solace in the fact that I am the highest point scorer not to have used any chips in our league so far.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're still far behind. I mean, you're on 435. I'm on 438. 448. It's not as much of a distance as I would hope. Considering that's
one good week.
That's one chip. Each chip is worth 20 points, realistically.
Maybe.
So I think you've got to well, if you play them right, each chip is worth 20 points. So I think you've got
apart from bench boost, because bench boost is the worst chip ever.
Bench boost is a rubbish chip. No one likes it. Everyone should just use it game week 1 and get it early. I hate bench boost so much.
It's the Tom Madden of FPL chips. No one likes it. It has no use to anyone at all.
That's just so needless. First thing in the morning, that was just so needless. Why don't we provide some actual content that people care about and speak about the games that took place? Because, well, I'm sure ribbing me is fun. No one actually likes it because everyone loves me. I'm hilarious and adorable, according to everyone except you.
Why are you even here?
Care to comment? Let's dive into the games then, and we'll just go through in order because there's only 7 games that take place this game week. And never have I ever wanted to kill myself watching a football match until I watched Aston Villa versus Southampton, because, oh my God, it was the most boring match in the history of football. 1-0, but genuinely just rubbish. I mean, Steven Gerrard desperately needed the win, but I was really struggling not to fall asleep, and I'm gutted I watched this over the Forest Fulham match. What did you think of the game?
I think Sky will be absolutely gutted with their choice of fixture to show on Friday night because, like you say, the game at the City Ground was by far and away the more entertaining game. It had everything, whereas this one had absolutely nothing. Ramsey with a goal. I mean, what else can you really say about the game? There was very little attacking input from both sides. There was Martinez made 1 save, Bazunu made 2. So that goes to show how little threat there was coming from either side. And it took a bit of a scramble for Ramsey to end up. It was a sort of header from, I think it was Watkins, that got parried up and fell down. And Ramsey slammed it home. So he was in the right place at the right time. He was the man that everyone was looking at sort of January, February time, wasn't he, Jacob Ramsey? As everyone was getting him in their teams. There was talk of an England call-up. And, yeah, I think, like you say, Gerrard needed the win. Villa with a clean sheet for anyone that's still got Luca Dean, even though he is now injured, so he'll be missing a bit of time. So Tyrone Mings picking up the bonus points as well, but no one's got Tyrone Mings. I mean, let's be honest, from an FPL standpoint, this game was an absolute write-off.
Yeah, Luca Digne getting a clean sheet and a bonus point and then an injury straight after the game is so classic Luca Digne. The guy just can't catch an FPL break, can he?
No. We've spoken about him so many times, in, out. of different teams. Whether we actually take anything seriously or not is a different matter. But he has had his time. I think it's very much his time has passed when it comes to FPL now. He's just too unreliable.
Yeah, completely agree. Let's move on to the more exciting game then. And what a game this was. So Nottingham Forest 2-3 Fulham. Fulham, Mitrovic not getting a single goal or assist, which is absolutely balmy because he still had a good game, actually, if you watch the game. And everything went through Mitrovic. It's just, it didn't fall for him. As an FPL asset, I'm not worried about owning him at all. I think, though, Fulham are looking very good. Getting it into that top 6 now. Admittedly, it's still really early in the season, but I think they're looking very strong this year, and they're what we wanted Fulham to be. Nottingham Forest, they can attack, but you just know they start every game 2-0 down. So what did you think of this game? It's a lot more exciting for sure.
Yeah, FPL Twitter was in absolute meltdown on Friday night as the goals were flying in and Mitrovic and Pereira were getting absolutely nothing. It was a sight to behold. And obviously Willian coming in and taking the corners as well, which was Pereira's job prior to his arrival. So that makes him a slightly less attractive asset, although he is still cheap and an easy way into a 4.5 mid that he's playing every week. So I don't think if you've got him, you're getting rid of him at all. But yeah, Fulham looking very good now. I think the stat is that no newly promoted team has ever been relegated after getting this many points from their first 6 or 7 games at this point. So they're looking like they should be pretty safe this year, which will obviously be like music to the ears of Fulham fans who have been experiencing this yo-yo up and down for sort of the last 4 or 5 years now. Yeah. They're looking like a more rounded side. They've got Mitrovic firing. As for Forest, Owen with another goal. Again, he was one that I sort of flirted with in my initial drafts pre-season, but never made the cut. I think that's his 2nd or 3rd goal of the season now, so potentially one to keep an eye on. But like defensively, you can't trust them, like you say. They are so leaky at the back. It's almost as though, and I know they had to do it, but it's almost as though signing 20 new players, trying to fit them all into a team in the Premier League on the fly is not a recipe for success.
Yeah, it's like they took the Fulham strategy from a few years ago and just times it by 10. Awoniyi is an interesting one. The problem is he's really not on my radar because of the amount of really strong strikers that there are at the moment. If we're looking at, you've got Kane and Haaland, the big two, but then you've got Mitrovic, you've got Isaac, you've got Tony. If you want to go a bit cheaper, I'm sure we'll get to him in a minute, you could go Solanke at the moment. So that there are options in those forward spots that we haven't had for a long time. So I just think it's not worth going to for a club that's almost certainly going to get relegated. I thought it was very, very classic that Reed, on his first ever Fulham goal, he just basically got a higher pass completion rate and scored a goal and then got 3 bonus points on the back of that. The bonus point system is absolutely ridiculous for those sitting midfielders, those midfielders with completion rates. Any other thoughts on this game? I thought Paulinho was magnificent again in that CDM role.
What a strike it was for his goal as well. It was an absolute beaut. My favourite thing was a goal scored by Reed, assisted by Reed. Bobby de Cordova-Reid assisted by Harrison Reed. So that is my favourite thing from FPL this week.
Well done. Did you actually get to watch the game? Did you see anything from Fulham or Forest that we're not picking up on? Obviously, Andreas without corners becomes slightly less appealing as a starter. But anything else?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I only seen the sort of extended highlights of this game. So I did say to you, actually, I said, you haven't doubled up on Fulham defenders. And, well, Tosin with a goal and Tete with an assist. I told you should be doubling up on Fulham defenders.
Yeah, but I would have got the wrong defenders, let's be honest. I would have got a goalkeeper and Tim Ream or something like that.
It's a Diop, West Ham legend.
It's a Diop, there you go. Let's move on to the Saturday games then. And the early kickoff was Wolves 0, Man City 3. And to be fair, Wolves were having a crack at it. However, when City got the second goal and then Collins just got a red card straight away afterwards, at that point, there was no way it was going to be anything other than a training match. Like both teams, Wolves just decided to sit. City just went into second gear. They got another goal, but they were just knocking it about. Everyone in the stadium at that point knew it was game over, and they knew exactly how the game was going to go. Jack Grealish, best game for City so far. KDB, as you mentioned, with 2 assists. Talk to me about your thoughts on the game, because I think Wolves were having a fair crack at it initially, but it just obviously didn't turn out well thanks to a moment of madness from Collins.
Yeah, I think overall Wolves sort of had a good game plan and went about it pretty well. But obviously, when you concede a goal in that sort of the first minute, or maybe it was just into the second minute, that puts you on the back foot straight away. It was with all the talk in the build up to the game about Grealish and his numbers and his underperforming. It was bound to happen that he'd score in this game, wasn't it? I mean, let's be honest. So, but it's good to see him get back on that score sheet and play, like you say, probably his best game in a City shirt so far. We'll get on to England in a bit in this international break, but from an England perspective, it's good to see.
Foden as well.
Yeah, and Foden had a very good game and a very nicely taken finish for his goal. So it is encouraging to see them getting a little bit more of the limelight. De Bruyne had a fantastic game. I think he came off at about the 65-minute mark after providing 2 assists. And even when they were 2-0 down, Wolves were still giving it a go, and they made a couple of chances. And like Ederson had to make one good save that I remember off the top of my head. So it weren't as though they just sat there and were a punching bag. But like you say, a moment of madness from Collins, that red card going in sort of stomach high with your studs up, like Nigel de Jong in the World Cup final in 2010, all those years ago. So yeah, there you go. There's a little throwback for you. So. Cancelo sweeping up the bonus points despite the fact he got no attacking returns. And De Bruyne already getting
Cancelo thing ever, isn't it? Although,
yeah.
for about the 900th week in a row, he was top for touches in the opposition box across all players this game week. And he's been top of that stat pretty much every single week for the last year.
He's unreal. So it's just like
this is why you have Cancelo in FPL, because he gets bonus points for crosses, touches in the opposition box, for clean sheets, for interceptions, all of which he's very good at. Now, in terms of classic defending, you can take him on leaving, but in a City side, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, he doesn't really need to defend much. They sort of see it like they had Stones playing at right back on Saturday afternoon, so he'd sort of switch inside and sort of sit in a back 3 almost. And then that gives Cancelo license to roam, which he does so well. So, yeah, like you say, that is why he is a must-have in FPL.
It's exactly actually the same as what Arsenal were doing with Zinchenko and Bukayo Saka. Saka is dropping back into a more of a defensive midfield position on that right-hand side. The whole team shifts over and Zinchenko gets license to just bomb forwards and attack. But, yeah, on the City point, for FPL, looking at the future, City are blanking in game week 12, as are Arsenal. Now, if we're looking at City assets, Haaland and Cancelo are the 2 best. In my opinion, I'm sure you'll probably agree. We've then got KDB, again, in a class of his own. Some people on FPL Twitter, idiots in my opinion, are saying, oh, Bernardo Silva's worth a shout. Look at his stats. And he's got like 1 return a game in the last 5 games or something. I personally don't think you should be trebling up on City assets at the moment. I say that I am, but I'll be looking to move at least 1, possibly 2 on. But based on the fact that they've got a blank in the game week 12, if you are looking at alternate City assets to those top 3 though, Grealish, fantastic shout. John Stones looks like he's starting every game, good shout. Foden looks like he's starting to get attacking returns. All of these are better than a Gundogan or a Bernardo Silva. What are your thoughts on City assets moving forward, particularly as you're on a wild card, and how are you navigating that game week 12?
Yeah, like you say, you've got the main 2 who everyone should have at this point of Haaland and Cancelo, and then it really is sort of up to you and how you feel. On my wild card as it stands, I have got De Bruyne, but that is quite possibly going to change. Like you say, it's very difficult with that game week 12 blank, because if you do triple up on City, and even if you've then got 1 Arsenal, I say obviously you've got to blur a transfer at some point to bring someone in. So that for me, for example, could be that week De Bruyne becomes Son if he carries on the form that he's picked up last week. obviously there's quite a few weeks to go between now and then. And I think in that week, Spurs play Man United. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I'm not really decided on. So I think if you are tripling up on City, it is a potential risk just because of Pep Roulette, as we all know. But I think it's safe to say at the moment, Cancelo and Haaland are as nailed can be, especially when Pep Guardiola is your manager. So, and De Bruyne's probably the only other one that you can bank on for minutes every single week. Grealish looks good at the moment. Foden looks good at the moment. Like Gundogan did look good, but he was benched at the weekend. And you throw Foden in there. Like anyone, you never really know who's going to play alongside those sort of main three, really. So maybe your best option is to go for a cheap entry into their defence like Stones, because he seems to be getting a lot of game time. It depends, obviously, with people coming back from injury, how long they'll be. Obviously, we've got the international break now. It's a lot like they've got an extra couple of weeks to recover. When that first game back after the international break is always really hard to call with players, especially players coming back from South America who don't play until like late Wednesday or Thursday. Then they've got to get back. Will they be fit and firing in time for a Saturday kickoff?
Yeah, big question mark around that. I actually think if you're in a wild card right now, you're probably better off with 2 City assets on the basis that you probably are going to have Martinelli or an Arsenal asset there as well. I genuinely think you're probably better off going with 2, so you're not booking a transfer in. But again, it's personal preference. I've currently got 3 and Martinelli, so that's a problem I need to sort at some point in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Wolves, I thought Neto looked good, but I won't be investing in them from an attacking standpoint just because Wolves can't score goals. Be interesting to see how Diego Costa does there, as he's just signed for them.
Yeah, I'm not convinced by Costa. I don't think he's the answer. He was just there. He was available. So why not? It's a punt. Like they're paying him I think it's just until the end of the season. So why not at this point? They've got to try something. Obviously, with Jimenez's injury record at the moment, like you say, Neto looked busy, but I won't be investing in any of their attacking assets. Defensively, they've looked good. Like they've got one of the best defensive records in the league this season, even after shipping 3. I think before that, they'd only conceded 4 in the league before Saturday's game. So there's potential entrance in there. I think Aït-Nouri actually looked really good, not just defensively, but going forward at times. Even when they were 2-0 down, he was still trying to get forward and bomb on and make things happen. So potentially there's an in there to go back to Aït-Nouri, who was in a lot of people's sides last season.
Perhaps. But if you look at Wolves' fixtures, it's West Ham away, then Chelsea away. Then you got Forest at home, and then you've got Crystal Palace away. These are really tough games. And if you're playing away, you've got to go down to London from Wolverhampton. Then they've got Leicester at home, which that's when you start bringing them in, because after that, they've got Brentford and Brighton. So I think maybe from game week 13 to 16, you can look at Wolves. That aside, I'm not going to be going near them from an investment point of view.
No, I think that with those fixtures, you want to be treading lightly, especially when there's so many better options, probably.
Yeah, agreed. Newcastle won, Bournemouth won. Now, we were both a bit frustrated by no clean sheet because we both have double Newcastle defence. Bet you were happy, though. Isaac goal and 3 bonus points with a Trippier assist.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised potentially by the Isaac 3 bonus points. Told you I should have captained him. I was considering doing it. It would have paid off, but like the difference would have been minimal.
6 points,
yeah. Trippier with the assist, obviously very helpful. And like I say, he was so close to scoring as well. He had a free kick that hit the post. Potentially Neto would have had it covered in goal anyway, but I'm choosing to believe it would have gone in. But yeah, I think Trippier looks very lively on set pieces, so I think he is still very much the man to have. And Nick Pope, I think, still should be the first goalkeeper on everyone's team sheets at the moment, purely because even though they haven't kept a lot of clean sheets, his save points keep him up there or thereabouts, and they will keep clean sheets as well. They've got a decent back line in front of him. So I think we keep talking about them. They look very exciting. The lack of St. Maximin maybe hampered them a little bit because they just lack that little bit of an X factor with unpredictability. But he'll be back after the international break. So I feel that will reinvigorate them a little bit.
Totally agree. 3 of the next 4 games as well are Fulham, Brentford and Everton. And they've got Man U away as well. And then they've got Tottenham away after those 4. But then after that, it's Villa and Southampton. So I actually think Newcastle are a good punt or good to double or treble up on until really not until the World Cup, game week 16. I really like them from an investment perspective, given the fixtures at the moment. Is there something to be said for Bournemouth as well? Have we been underrating Bournemouth?
Potentially. I mean, look at them sat in 12th in the table at the moment, despite losing one game 9-0. They still have got the worst goal difference, which is understandable. But I mean, Philip been in with 2 goals in his last 2 games. Not that I don't think anyone will be rushing to get him in. The thing I think with Bournemouth at the moment is I don't see anyone that's going to get consistent points. They might pick up points here and there, but I feel like they're very much a side that people will chip in rather than having someone outstanding to lead the line, for example, because I don't think Solanke's a very good footballer. I don't think he's Premier League quality, and I don't think he'll get enough points. Billing, yeah, he's got 2 and 2, but he's that's not form that he's going to carry on, is it? Let's be realistic.
No, it's not. And with Bournemouth as well, they are. I mean, they don't have the Scott Parker effect anymore, so they should be better. But I think, well, actually, with Billing, if you look at Billing versus a Neto from Wolves, Billing has really outperformed him. In that price bracket, I think there's something to be said. I personally think you're better off just avoiding that price bracket altogether, though.
Yeah, I agree. And there is talk of, I think, American consortium looking to take over Bournemouth. And that will potentially, I mean, obviously they've got Gary O'Neill still as caretaker manager. There's not been much movement on that front at the moment. Whether he gets the job full time, I don't know. But you always find this with caretaker managers, they'll get like a quick bump out of the side, and then it's really hard to maintain that over if they get the job permanently. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there with in terms of a new manager and what they could potentially do with any investment in January.
Yeah, totally agree. Next game is the last one on Saturday, and what a game it was. Spurs 6, Leicester 2. Now, we've spoken a bit about Heung-min Son, but he started on the bench. And for my wild card, I was just thinking, do I really want him if he's gonna be rumoured to be on the bench? He started on the bench, I felt justified. Then he came on and scored a hat-trick. There was a game for Liverpool last season where Salah started on the bench. Everyone was celebrating that didn't captain him. Then he came on and scored 2 and assisted 1 or something like that.
Crystal Palace, I believe that was.
Yeah, Palace. So it feels very similar here. And Son scored 3 goals from an XG of 0.4, which is much more like the Son from last season. I actually think on a wild card, he's a must-have for me. If I was on a wild card right now, I spoke about him last week and I absolutely bottled it. But I think he definitely should be looking to bring Son in for this week. Kane with a goal and assist. A little bit disappointing considering Spurs scored 6, but I'll take it as my captain. But yeah, looking purely at Spurs players and Spurs only, what were your thoughts on them this game?
Well, it was funny actually. I was out for dinner on Saturday night. It was for my dad's birthday, and I left home after about 10 minutes of the game. At which point, both sides had already scored. A penalty had been saved, retaken, and then scored, and then there was a goal at the other end for Kane. And I was like, why have I got to go out now? Like, this looks like it's going to be such an entertaining game. And you actually said before the game, it's like every Leicester game starts 1-1, and you were proven right in less than 10 minutes of this game. But like, it was such an entertaining game. Like I say, Son coming off the bench. I was out where I was out. There was no signal, so I had no idea what the score was. By the time I got in the car to come home, I looked it up and I was like, "Fuck me, how has that happened?" And then I actually saw the goals and like Son. I think he was a little bit humble in his post-match interview, saying that he got 2 lucky goals. But
no, they were quality.
That is pure class, isn't it? And that is the Son, like you say, the Son of old. I'm tempted by him on my wild card instead of De Bruyne.
You're absolutely mad.
It's just the fixtures. Like obviously, Spurs have Arsenal away next, which that on a North London derby you never know. So it's potentially it's shit or bust for me really. Then Brighton away, which is a tough game at the moment with Brighton's record, but obviously we're still really yet to see how they're going to be under new management. If you remember Brighton away last year. Spurs was at the end of the season when they really threw away that full place, and I don't think they had a shot on target in the game. Obviously, it would be very surprising if that happens again. But then their fixtures, in the next 4 after that, they've got United, Newcastle and Liverpool in that run as well in the build-up to the World Cup. So it's not an easy run of fixtures. Whereas I know City blank in that time, but they play Southampton, they play Leicester, they play Fulham, Man U, you don't know, but then there's Liverpool. It's like, it really is a coin flip because I feel like they've got similar fixtures. De Bruyne, I feel like, is more of a safe bet because he's probably going to pick up returns and assists in at least sort of half of those games. Son, I just don't know. It's one game. Like, I know he's had the most shots before that game without scoring a goal. He's got his hat-trick now. It's one game against a very, very poor defensive side.
I mean, we'll talk about Leicester in a minute, but I think Son is a confidence player. And as soon as he got that first goal, you could see the relief on his face, and he just went and banged 2 more in, just because he plays on confidence. I think that hat-trick would have got him right back in the mood. And he is traditionally, if you exclude last season, he's a streaky player. So if you look at him now, he could be very much about to start a hot streak. So regardless of who he plays, I think I would, if I was wildcarding, I'd be bringing him in. As it stands, I'd have to take a -4 or 8 to get him in, which I'm not going to do. And I'd have to drop Kane as well. But I think Son is a really, really a much better option than KDB, considering the blank. We'll come to your wildcards in a minute. Let's
How
talk.
About if I get Son in and he blanks, you owe me a reach around.
Deal. But if it doesn't blank, can I still give you the reach around? Let's talk about Leicester then. Now, Ward, we've got to feel sorry. You text me saying I feel sorry for him. After I said he's arguably the worst starting keeper the Premier League's ever seen. So talk me through your thoughts on Danny Ward, the poor soul.
I would argue that Massimo Taibbi was a worse keeper, but he was never really number one. But anyway, like I say, he was like 3 or 4 days before the season starts, Schmeichel leaves. He was never intended to be a number one Premier League goalkeeper. He was thrown in at the deep end, having no real experience as a Premier League number one. Then he's got a defence in front of him which is falling apart. The best defender leaves and goes to Chelsea. They can't defend a set piece, and this isn't a new thing. Like, since the start of last season, they have conceded more goals from set pieces than any other team. I might go back to my tactic of bringing in whoever takes corners against Leicester every week, because at the moment that is just an absolute guaranteed assist every week, pretty much. So, I mean, he actually made some good saves in this game. There was one that he tipped onto the bar, which was a good save. So he's not a terrible goalkeeper. Like, obviously, if you get to that standard, you can save shots. You're not a bad goalkeeper, but he's just like a rabbit in the headlights at the moment, and you can't see anything. We're in the international break now. It's notoriously a time for managerial change. Does Rodgers go?
You've got to think so. Rodgers has given up with that team. Leicester's fixtures are really, really good, though, moving forward. If you look at their next 5, it's Forest at home, Bournemouth away, Palace at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away. That's a beautiful run of fixtures. The only asset that anyone should be considering, though, is James Maddison. He's the only one that looks even remotely lively. I think he could do really well in the next 5 games, but I also think that Leicester could lose the next 5 games as well. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. So, I think Rodgers has to go, but from a FPL point of view, you're only really looking at Maddison.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. Like you say, he is the only glimmer of light for Leicester at the moment as they sit. They are bottom, aren't they? Yeah, rock bottom of the league on 1 point. Like, that is
even
very
a win,
damning.
Bottom. If they win the next game versus Forest, they'll still be rock bottom, which is really worrying.
No, they won't. They'll go above them on goal difference.
Oh, they'll be effectively bottom. But look, Maddison is the only one you'll consider from Leicester. Let's jump ahead then, because we can talk forever about how bad Leicester are and how good Spurs are. But I think another team that are really doing well before the North London derby is Arsenal, because Brentford 0, Arsenal 3. And Brentford were they just weren't the Brentford we're used to seeing. Arsenal were fantastic. Even without Odegaard, Vieira was really, really good. Granit Xhaka, what a season he's having. He's looking like arguably the best midfielder in the league so far this year. Over exaggeration to make a point, but he's looking really, really good.
Yeah, it's looking like the Xhaka that they actually signed all those years ago. And he, ever since then, he seems to have been a constant source of frustration and pain and disappointment for Arsenal fans, whether it came to his time as captain, which ended on a sour note, and it looked like he was going to leave the club. But yeah, this year he's been on fire. He's been absolutely incredible. Vieira got his first start and scored a great goal. Brentford looked like they struggled in this game, and they didn't really create anything going forward. Tony celebrating his first England call-up by going missing for 90 minutes. But like we said earlier, the main man, Saliba, absolutely cleaned up with his goal, clean sheet, 3 bonus points. So he was the man for them in this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, and Saka with 2 assists as well. Like, he was highly rated going into the season, but sort of has slid under the radar a little bit with the performances from Martinelli and to a lesser extent Odegaard. So it's good to see him sort of picking up some returns, but he is still probably too expensive for his returns that he's got so far.
Yeah, I said at the beginning of the season, I just don't think at 8 million you can justify Saka when you've got Martinelli at 6. But then again, Martinelli didn't pick up an attacking return this game, which is frustrating because, again, he looks really, really good when he plays. Gabriel Jesus, a lot of us took him out on Wildcard, myself included, scoring, picking up a yellow card. And did you know that Gabriel Jesus currently has double the amount of yellow cards for the season than Granit Xhaka?
That is an impressive record. And they were both booked in this game.
Yeah, but Xhaka's on 2 for the season. Gabriel Jesus is on 4. So, but the yellow cards are costing him bonus points in FPL, which is, if he hadn't got the yellow, he'd be on 2 bonus points. And that's happened a couple of times this season. So while he is getting attacking returns, I think in that striking slot, you've got other options there. I'm not saying he's a bad option by any means, but with Arsenal blanking in 12, ideally, I'm not sure Gabriel Jesus is a great option for the moment. Maybe after that.
Yeah, I agree. Like, he hasn't made the cut on my wild card. I feel like the North London derby,
I'm really excited.
Put money on him getting booked.
Oh yeah, the derby's going to be great because both teams are coming in form.
Yeah, it will be. It should be a very entertaining game, and I'm looking forward to watching that. It's the early kickoff on Saturday next week, so that is like the perfect intro to a week of football for me, like a big spicy derby game. But obviously, if Jesus does pick up a card, he will then be serving a 1-match suspension. So you're probably looking at within the next few weeks, he's got to miss a game, plus they've got a blank as well. So that is probably why you want to be looking to avoid him if you're on a wild card at the moment, in my opinion.
I think, aside from maybe Martinelli, if you've got money invested, you avoid all Arsenal if you're on a wild card just because of that blank in 12. But yeah, Gabriel Jesus especially. Let's chat then about the game you really want to talk about. Now, Everton won, West Ham 0. Matt texted me during this game saying, I fucking hate Brighton and all ex-Brighton players, especially their strikers. Do you want to elaborate on what you really felt then?
Oh, it is disgusting. I feel like we are struggling at the moment. There's a lot of Moyes out chat around at the moment, which I personally don't agree with. The job he's done over the last couple of years, getting us into Europe and having 2 really good Premier League seasons, has bought him some time. But
right?
yeah, it is very reactive. And the question is, if you sacked him now, who are you going to bring in, like, realistically? So that's stupid. West Ham fans do like to overreact. But I do fucking hate Brighton and all ex-Brighton players because they are the thorn in our side wherever we go. Neil Maupay is not a good footballer. He will get you like 6 to 8 Premier League goals a season, but he will score in both games he plays against West Ham. You can guarantee it every year. He went on a big blank run a couple of years ago and he ended it with an overhead kick at the London Stadium to equalise like right at the end of the game. I cannot stand Neil Maupay. I cannot stand. I like Brighton. I like Brighton as a team. I just fucking hate playing them and anyone that's ever had any association with Brighton. We're never going to beat Chelsea again while Graham Potter's there. He can lose every single game while he's in charge, but he'll beat us 6-0 both times.
Talk to me about who you prefer, Neil Maupay or Wilf Zaha.
Oh, Wilf Zaha.
Oh, wasn't expecting that quick a decision.
No, the thing is, I don't like Wilf Zaha as an FPL asset because he always blanks when I have him in my team. I hate Neil Maupay as a football fan because he ruins my team's dreams every year.
Do you hate him in the same way that I hate Scott Parker?
Yes.
Is that a fair? Okay, I completely understand, and I can get behind that kind of hatred 100%. I'm here for it. In terms of the game, though, Everton looks absolutely dog shit. But West Ham looked even more dog shit. Everton are going to stay up this year by virtue of other teams, like them catching other teams during shit spells. That's it. They're just getting the timing right to play teams like West Ham. Because if, like, in 6 weeks Everton played West Ham, I expect West Ham would win 3-0. But Everton are going to stay up on the basis that they're getting the timings right.
Yeah, it was a terrible game of football. Like, just overall,
awful.
There was a real lack of quality from both sides. We're sort of too reliant on our players that aren't in form at the moment. Thomas Souček needs to be out of the team at the moment. Vladimir Coufal needs to be out of that team at the moment, but they're both still getting game times based on Moyes' loyalty. He needs to bring in some of more of these new signings that we haven't really seen much of starting. Max Cornet isn't getting enough game time. Paqueta's started. That's good to see. Scamacca isn't getting enough game time. Antonio's starting and Scamacca's coming off the bench. But the thing that does frustrate me with Moyes is his lack of ability to change a game from the bench. We're chasing a goal. We're 1-0 down. You've got a striker on the bench in Scamacca. You bring him on, but he brings Antonio off. Why not go 2 up top? You're chasing the game. You need a goal. Put as many strikers on as you can, really. I mean, let's be honest. That makes sense to me. But we'll see what happens after the international break. Our fixtures aren't that great. Wolves next, who have got a very good defensive record. That'll be a difficult one for us. And then it's Fulham and Southampton.
Yeah, I think
Fulham. We've spoken about Fulham. That's a tough game at the moment. Southampton, we've got to be looking to get something out of that. Then 2 of our next 3 are Liverpool, Man United, and I don't see us getting anything against either of them. So it's important that we pick up points in the other games.
Liverpool, you never know at the moment, right?
True, that is true.
Why don't you talk me through your wildcard then, as we're coming to the end of this pod? Let's see what you've got so far.
So this is only a very first draft. This was about a 5-10 minute go through on Saturday lunchtime, just after while I was watching the City Wolves game, actually. So currently sat on a starting 11 of Pope in goal, because why would you get rid of Pope? A back 3 for this week of Cancelo, James and Trippier. Midfield 4 of Andreas, still in there, Martinelli, Luis Diaz and Kevin De Bruyne. And a front 3 of Isaac, Haaland and Mitrovic, which leaves me a bench of Ward, because why not? Then my other 2 sub-defenders are Tyreek Mitchell and Malacia at Man United, because I feel like that's a cheap way into United's defence, and they are looking all right at the moment, and he looks good going forward, more importantly. And then my third sub for this week would be Alexis McAllister, because I feel like him on set pieces at Brighton and getting forward a little bit more than he has done previously. He's impressed me this year. So I just think, you know what? He's passed the eye test, so I'm going to give him a shot. He won't be playing this week against Liverpool, potentially not against Spurs, but then they've got Brentford and Forest in the next 2 games after that. And I feel like he's got some real potential for returns in there. Like I say, the main thing sort of going through my head at the moment is the De Bruyne v Son argument.
Yeah. I mean, you know my position on that. Actually, you were reading out your wildcard team. It's not completely dissimilar to what my team's looking like for next game, because I've got, like you, Pope, but then I've got Cancelo, Trippier and Trent instead of Reece James. And I've also got John Stones in there as well. But then I've got Luis Diaz, Martinelli and Maddison, and then Mitro, Kane and Haaland. So a couple of differences. You've got a bit more in the midfield. I've got a bit more up top. But then, again, both teams looking relatively similar, bar 1 or 2 players. So it is very tight this year. If you've had a bad game week, just go and enjoy the international break. Loads of other people have had bad game weeks as well, so don't get perturbed by it. And you'll definitely have the chance to come back stronger over the next couple of games or so. Remember, City and Arsenal both blank in 12, so start your preparations for that. Any other closing thoughts, Matt?
No, just enjoy the international break, like you say. A couple of big games for England coming up. Friday night against Italy and Monday against Germany, I believe it is. So a couple of good games there, should be interesting. So just try and switch off for a few days if you're getting frustrated by things. If you're on your wild card, tinker as much as you want. Just have a good time.
We'll do a little post-international game podcast as well next week, just to see what we thought of the games and see what we would be doing or looking at for the World Cup as well. So you've got a non-FPL podcast from us to look forward to.
Well, I'm sure we'll squeeze some FPL in there somewhere.
It's all we talk about, so we'll definitely. Otherwise, everyone, enjoy the international break. Have a great weekend, and we can't wait to speak to you next week.